Okay, so now we're going to want to add in that Excel spreadsheet that we just made. And so we want to make sure Excel is quit, which it is. Then you want to go to Add Data. And that's just this little plus sign here. When you click Add Data, you can get your folder that you're already connected to. If you haven't connected to, you can always drop down here and go to Folder Connections and choose where your Lab 1 folder is. And then in here you'll see that you have the median income Texas 2010 Excel spreadsheet and the backup. We're going to not use the backup, we're going to click on the original. And then remember we had two sheets. One sheet was the original raw file from the census, and the other one was the one that we created. So we're going to click on data $, that's the one that we created, and we're going to hit add. That's going to add in our data, and you can see it now here on the table of contents. Go ahead and check it out by right clicking and hitting open. That's going to open it up just the same way you opened up your attribute table earlier. And you can see here now GeoID, total pop, error, meet income, error 1. These are the ones that we made earlier in Excel. So remember, this was the total population for the number of people in each census tract. Then here we had the median income. So this is the incomes for each of those people. Actually, this was household, so truth is not population, it's households. One thing that we want to check out is this GeoID. If you right click and you say properties, you can see here that it is a double. A double means that it's a number. And you can always click on here and check out the way they have it written and so forth, but that's all just display and semantics. But so we have a double number here. And then if we go and check out our attribute table for our census spreadsheet, our census file that we downloaded, we go to GeoID 10 and you say properties here, and you can see we have a string. So this is going to cause us a little bit of problems with it being a string versus being a double. It's not going to let us join those two. So what we're going to have to do is actually edit this data to make it into a string also. So what I want to do is, because ArcMap crashes a lot whenever you're using Excel files directly, I want to export this data into a different format that ArcMap will handle easier. So I go to data and I right click and choose the data on the option and export, and this is going to allow me to export it into my Lab 1 folder as a different. Actually, don't do it this way, hit cancel. You want to do it from here. So you can see here on my attribute table, we just pull this off of the undock it. So you go ahead and close that. Open. Okay, well, I'll undock it later. But anyways, you can see here the table, right? And up here on the very top corner of the table, you see table options. If I drop down here and choose export, I can export this table into a different format. So again, click on table options and choose export. Then you're going to have export data. We want all records, that's fine. And whenever we click the little folder, we'll be able to navigate to our Lab 1 folder, and then here we can choose a different format that ArcMap would work with better. D-base table is the best format for ArcMap out of my experience. So I'm going to go here and change this, and I'm going to call it Med Inc. So this is going to make a database file that ArcMap will work with better. And it says, do you want to add new table to current map? You say okay, yes, and just go ahead and remove the other one. So now if I open this one up by right clicking and choosing open, I'll see here I have all my information. This is nice, but again, the problem is here we have this as a double. So we need to make this into a string. We can't just change this to a string, so we're going to have to add a new field and populate it with that same information, but the new field would be a string. So I'm going to say add field. When I click on add field from the table options, I'll have here where I can choose what I want to be. A string is a text, so I'm going to choose text, and I'm going to call this ID. And I wouldn't worry too much about the length. I'm just leave it at 50 now. In the past, you had to worry about the length to make sure that it was was long enough or short enough. And it was mostly about size. In this case, we're not going to work because computers today are really good. So we're just going to say OK. And I can see here now ID with it blank. What I want to do is click on ID, right click it, and choose Field Calculator. That's going to allow me to say that ID, you see here, ID is equal to GeoID. And pretty much I'm just saying do a calculation where ID is equal to GeoID. Normally with Field Calculator I can do things like add things or subtract things or whatever. So I hit OK, and that's going to populate this field now with this information, but this time it populated it as a string. So if I go here, I right click and I say properties, you'll see here string, and that's good. So now we're ready for the join. And what we're going to do now is join this ID to open attribute table to GeoID 10. So the way I'm going to do that is that you're going to click on the layer in your table of contents, you're going to right click it and say join and relates and choose join. That's going to pop up another window. It's asking you which table you want to join to. I want to join to medium income, and I want to use GeoID 10. And then here it gives me my option of ID. If you do not see your option here, that means you're having a problem with the string and the double thing, and you're going to have to do the field calculator. So I'm going to do that. And then one thing that I can do is I can say validate join, and that's just going to tell me if there's any issues. It'll just say what's happening. So far it seems like everything's fine, and it tells me only 2,269 of my 5,265 records matched. It's a little weird, but we're going to see what happens. So we're going to say OK and see what happens when we do that. And what I want to see is I want to see my GeoID. I want to scroll over and see what got attached and what didn't get attached. So it's kind of interesting that some of the census tracts didn't get attached, and that's because they have these little divisions here. That can be an issue. We're gonna have to look more into our data and see what that looks like. But maybe one of the things that we're gonna have to do is just delete those census tracts if they're just overlapping. So let's see what happens if we zoom in. We have 9501, which is this one, 95.04.1, 95.04.2, and let's see what happens. So these are showing up as two different census tracts. So this can be an issue for us with the data that I have, because I don't think I have 95.041. So we need to check this out now. So there's a track ID. Let's go back to that Excel spreadsheet and see what happened. This is the reason why we did the backup, because you see how it's locked for editing. Even though I don't have Excel open up here anymore, the fact that I used it in ArcMap locked it, and pretty much I would end up having to quit ArcMap in order to see it. Now if I go here to the backup one, I can easily see it. So I open that up. I'm going to check out what's happening here, and I can see here from my different values 401. And the truth is though is that I do have 401. So I wonder why it's not joining those two whenever I have a 401 there. Let's see what that value is in here. It's showing up as 400 in my spreadsheet. That means, and I have actually two 400, so maybe one is 401 and one is 402. And for some reason though, whenever I exported it, I think it changed it, and we're gonna have to figure out why it did that. See, sort smallest. See, sort smallest to largest. Okay, sort. Yeah, I see I have 401, 402, and for some reason here it showed up as 400. Thanks, ArcMap. So something obviously went wrong, and we're just going to end up having to scratch that out for error. So go ahead and remove the join, remove all joins. That will get rid of the joins that happened. I don't like this median income anymore. Something's wrong with it. So you can see here the geo IDs came out bad. So go ahead and remove that. One thing to also think about is maybe going ahead and deleting that so you don't have to see it again. See, so if I go to catalog here, I can see here median income DBF. Just go ahead and delete that. And yes. So let's go back to what we had in our Excel spreadsheet and see if that is going to save us any problems. If I go back into our catalog, I see here my Excel spreadsheet, data $. I can just drag that over here and add it in. Let's go ahead and open that, and we can see here that the geo IDs here are correct. So obviously something happened with the exporting data. So instead of going and through and exporting it to make a new field that's a string, maybe what we can do is do it from the shapefile, which might have better results. So let's go to here to the shapefile, and instead of exporting it, adding field, we're going to add field here. So add field, and this time I want it to be a double, and I'm going to call it ID. Okay. And then here under ID, I'm just going to say field calculator. I'm going to select that column. I want to do field calculator, and ID is going to equal geo ID 10. So this is the same logic, right? We want to take something that was a string and turn it into a double. This time we're attacking the problem from the opposite way, since it didn't work out the first way. And then you can see here that it added that ID field in there, and this time I do have 401, 402. That's nice, 500. So it seems like this might work out. Let's right click here, we choose join, and this time we're joining from our shapefile from ID to our data $, which had geo ID. Let's validate the join. Let's check it out and see what it says. And this time we have 5,265 records of 5,265 records joined. That means that the join is working. There seems to be no errors and everything's working. So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to do the join, and now you can see that that information that was in that spreadsheet got added into here. There's a few things that are a little weird in our spreadsheet, like here we don't have a median income and a zero population for 98,000. We can always zoom to and check out what that layer is. There might be a problem there, and let's check out our Excel spreadsheet that we had the backup on. So census tract 9800. I can just do a check out what the ID number was. I can even just copy that one ID and then go over here and find it, find next, and I can see here I had null, so I did have no information in that one. So sometimes you're going to have things like this happen, but that's okay. Sometimes the census has to do things like no information if there's nobody living in that census tract. Also, this could happen if there's too few of people living in census tract and you're practically giving away private information by providing that, because there only might be one person living in that census tract. So you're going to have sometimes things like this, nulls. That's okay. So basically this is successful. The join happened, but it's not finished. One thing that you have to do in this situation is that you need to export this shapefile into a whole new shapefile. And the reason why you need to do that is because the join right now is virtual. There's just a connection. You want to create data now, so then you don't have to worry about that join. So what you want to do is, okay, this is the tracts. I want to right click it, say data, export data, and I want to make sure I export all my features, and I'm going to go ahead and export that into the lab1 folder, and this time I'm going to call this medium income Texas. this is going to make a shapefile now with that Excel spreadsheet. So now I hit save and OK, and that's going to export out now this shapefile. And so what we've done now is we took, just a recap, we took Excel spreadsheet, we added it to ArcGIS as data $, we joined it here to this shapefile. Once it was joined, the Excel spreadsheet showed up here in our attribute table. Then what we're doing now is exporting this shapefile in order to create a whole new data set. And when I hit yes here, it's going to add that data set. So now it doesn't matter if I have this join or this data in here. I can actually just go ahead and remove them. It doesn't even matter, because this medium income, if I open it and I look here, has the information built into it. Go ahead and hit save, and then we're going to work next on how to display the data.